As we're getting more global and things are more connected, people will be, showing up from Asia in a US market and all of a sudden be part of the same experience. So how can you actually make it local while also being open to others from other markets?
You basically imagine the metaverse at the end of the day to become kind of like a shared space for people from different countries.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's going to be how we experience things all together in millions of ways, all the time, everywhere.
So when people talk about building a metaverse for everyone, that's a huge conversation in terms of identity.
In the previous episodes, we covered marketing, brand safety, and representation in the metaverse. But will the same rules apply in Web3 markets around the globe? European Union, for example, has announced its plans for a more regulatory framework on the metaverse to prevent privatization and ensure the healthy development of the space. Whereas the Chinese government made a step back and banned the major element of the metaverse, cryptocurrency. Besides different laws, the cultural identity is another factor to consider. What are the values of the audience? What is the adoption rate of the metaverse technology in that country? For this episode, we invited 3 industry leaders who come from an international background. Let's start by pinpointing the potential challenges of entering the metaverse in different markets.
I would probably base it off of what global brands already do. They localize everything by market and decide where they want to release something or how they want to show up. Very similar, that will probably happen as well. For a very long time, brands will keep it very local and decide what they want to do by market.
The barriers are, for now, like pretty tough. There is a lot of them because you need devices, but it depends what are the experience you want to bring to the table. So if it's AR, it's going to be pretty easy for a lot of brands and markets to bring a first AR experience to people. But if we were talking about VR, that's going to be a little bit tougher because devices are not accessible to everybody. But yeah, there is a lot of barriers, but technology is slowly getting there and people are adopting pretty fastly.
Obviously here in the US, I'm having a very distinct conversation around the metaverse with my colleagues right at work. It's very commerce driven. That's a trend I'm seeing. But then, for example, if I talk at home in Germany with my family where I'm from, they're much more hesitant about the metaverse because the adoption rate is not as high, and while they love technology, regulation is very important, so they're not as advanced in this path yet. And then I went to school in Japan, and so when I talk to my friends back there, they're very much all into the metaverse, so they understand how it's moving forward, how fast it goes, and they're very technology forward, so they already adopted much more than anyone else. However, they are much more about the communities.
Why the conversation about the metaverse is, it's been driven by mainly elite countries, so the western east coast of America, large European cities, etc., and the views that people in those countries have on things like gender identity and race and stuff like that are very, very different to if you went and had the same conversations with people in the Middle East or parts of Africa or parts of Asia.
What resources would you say are required for brands to enter the metaverse space in the first place? How might this impact adoption by smaller brands or brands in emerging markets?
I think there's a misconception that you have to enter the metaverse, right? That big M word, with a lot of money and a lot of effort. I think what's interesting to me is actually that the smaller brands, the startups, are so much more efficient and faster and more nimble in how they can activate and think about these things. Because as a big brand, as an established brand, right, you have processes, you have approvals, and there's teams who need to see it before they actually sign off of it.
I think it will help a lot smaller brands because everything that is on the blockchain project, NFTs, it's all about communities. And I think smaller business have the chance to be built on communities. So I think it's going to be the best outcome for them.
For a big brand to activate in Web3 right now, or to, for example, run an NFT campaign with a really hot collaborator from the space, takes a lot longer than, for example, that small, nimble startup could actually do and activate on, because they don't have like an army of lawyers who need to sign off on the documents, which would typically takes a lot of time. So there's a big plus for smaller companies and brands to think about, hey, I'm really fast. I can actually jump on this, make sure I understand it, find the great collaborators and turn it into something great. And really take advantage of the fast-paced movement that it truly is.
Center social media, there is this picture, there is understanding that you don't need that many resources that small brands are capable of doing that if they figure out the right strategy. Is it similar to the metaverse? Or would you say it requires a bigger budget than that?
Depends on how you define metaverse and what it is you want to do. There is wonderful students, actually, like fashion design students, who can create an AR filter like within a day and put out their fashion or their digital fashion design idea within a day. And then someone could pick this up. So it's not about necessarily thinking about the big investment, but truly about what is it that you do and what can you leverage, same way you would, as any person could create a Twitter account, right, and create content, the same way you can find the technology that fits your needs and create something. Obviously, that same student probably is not able to create an entire virtual reality setup, right, and create an entire fashion show. So there is levels to that, and everyone has to find sort of the sweet spot into the space and then work their way from there.
What nuances, if any, exist in the way consumers in different markets engage with the metaverse?
It's all about experience. An experience in China will be very, very different from an experience in the metaverse in the Western world. They won't be able to say or act or do the same thing. So brands will have to do what they actually already do in the Middle East or Asia. They are already like regulating themselves, and brands are being already careful and sometimes a little bit conservative.
The differences are very likely driven by the cultural environment that you're in. So say Europe versus Asia, very different cultural environments, many different countries we're in, and different understanding of how you use technology, for example. What are you using it for? What is the adoption rate even for technology? So not everyone is the same. We're all kind of different, and the way we're engaging with technology is different.
But that's another big thing if you want to create something that's truly global. So we're working with an alcohol brand at the minute. To buy alcohol in the UK, it's 18, in America, it's 21, I think Canada's 19. And obviously with that comes different regulations about how you sell, what can you sell. If we think about an NFT that might give you a digital t-shirt or something, if it's an alcohol brand, can you buy that if you're under 18? Because all you're doing is buying a digital t-shirt. If it gives you money off or other perks, if you're buying the NFT, should you be age gated then, or should the age gating only happen when you come to use that token? There's loads of these questions that are nuanced and complex, and there's no answers for at the minute, and then the answers will be defined by the experiences that are created, and people will decide, I guess courts will decide on behaviors.
Most of the metaverse in games in the Western world are based on crypto and NFTs. Crypto is not allowed in China for now, for example. So there is barriers for them to actually bring a way to pay or to get for users to get what they want in the metaverse. I think they will find solutions where like even more interesting. Chinese companies like Tencent are like investing so much money on that. They are getting there. They will find like ways. It's the same. The US will have to regulate also what crypto means in America. So it will create a lot of like new approach and new strategies for brands.
We were seeing social media adoption being very different and different apps being used across the world. So that's also something to consider that we're already seeing right now. Some of these platforms, some of these apps are very much preferred in Asia versus the US versus Latin America, right? There's regional differences. I think a lot of brands will need to understand and learn more about. And the same way we've developed the social media, I'm going back to that example, there's going to be a path where we truly have to understand, okay, this is a new ecosystem with different behaviors, different interests, and different paths ahead. And they will strongly vary by market. But if a brand is actually smart about that, they will truly also understand to already include more people, because as we're getting more global and things are more connected, people will be, showing up from Asia in a US market and all of a sudden be part of the same experience. So how can you actually make it local while also being open to others from other markets?
You can see, for example, in Dubai, they think the metaverse will bring like 40,000 jobs. They are seeing the metaverse as like an extension of business, of markets, of new things. They opened the first hospital, for example, in Dubai, in the metaverse, which is very interesting because you can bring an expertise, a professional knowledge directly to consumer wherever they are. So it's very customizable. And I think this is where it's interesting. Here in the US is very different because it's all about gaming. It's really like, for now, it's like playful. Big companies are trying to control that, to control what would be the metaverse. But I'm very optimistic about the the outcome of it.
I would do lots of social listening, right? That's a wonderful tool we're already using in today's world, listening to what the people are saying, what they want. For example, in the US at this point, at least within the larger NFT community and those users who are accustomed to NFTs, there's always already the anticipation that, yes, you're not only getting an NFT, but you're likely getting a reward of some sort, or there's something connected down the road that you're getting in exchange for that NFT. Versus Europe, for example, there's lots more hesitation around that because the knowledge and the education just isn't there yet. It's not as evolved. So you would want to understand, okay, how far along the path are they, and what can we actually bring to make it easier for everyone to understand. So I think it's truly just important to understand your audience, listen to what they're saying, what they want. Maybe it's not the NFTs that work in Europe, maybe it's something entirely different, right? So you really want to understand what is the current adoption rate, how comfortable are people with new technology, and is it the right time? Maybe we need to create something else first, or maybe it's next year. So there's truly needs to be a real close look at what your core audiences are saying and what they want and how comfortable they are with the space.
Gen Z generation and the next one will be the one that actually, wherever, whatever culture, whatever country, will shape a lot of like what this metaverse means. And they want to be engaged, they want to be entertained, they want to be part of the conversation, they want to change things. So I think it's not anymore about countries, borders. It won't be anymore about borders and politics at some point.